So tonight's class is it's either 21 or 23, the 21st or the 23rd class of our 32 class structured study of Vipassana. We're 2/3 of the way through. And this particular sutta obviously follows all of the other 20 some odd ones, but particularly since we went through the three suttas on dukkha, the Dukkha Sutta, the Maha Dukkha Kanda Sutta, and the Kula Dukkha Kanda, the lesser sutta on dukkha, and then these last few talks on fabrications and jhana, we can easily see how this Dhamma is now clearly resolving within an individual's view and how they see themselves in relation to the world. I think that's rather obvious to everyone except maybe Karen. Is that true? Everybody else kind of got that? Yeah. Do you see that, Karen? I know you're. So just briefly, the Buddha taught that in order for a human being to develop a calm and peaceful mind and live successfully in the world, meaning successfully, meaning peacefully, so not get a lot of things, that they had to understand who they are and they had to understand the world they're living in. That's the entire Buddhist Dhamma teaches just that, but it teaches it in a completely realistic, unembellished, unfabricated way. In other words, it's really the stark reality of life is what the Buddha taught, but in a very gentle way, because a mind that is rooted in understanding is a very gentle mind. So even though you might be aware of the harsh realities of life, you have developed what we call in the Dhamma a secluded mind. You're no longer entangled in the world, so the harshness of the world can no longer affect you. The first noble truth stays the noble truth. Dukkha occurs, but we no longer lose our minds over it. That's the basic understanding of developing that understanding. So these 32 classes that the entire Buddhist Dhamma is about that, but these 32 classes that we're in the middle of right now are specifically focused on resolving that issue. Okay, and so this sutta, very short sutta, is significant on so many levels because it touches so many of the themes of the Buddhist Dhamma. Going back to those three suttas on dukkha, each one of those suttas, while somewhat different, all taught by the Buddha that there's the issue of sensual indulgence or constantly craving after constant sensual indulgence. That is one aspect of dukkha. You remember in the Dukkha Sutta and the Maha Dukkha Kanda Sutta, I think one or the other, where the Buddha says it's the allure and the drawback of sensuality that is a problem. And he also says the allure and the drawback of sensuality is simply sensuality, meaning the constant craving after experiences and things is both sides of that same coin. And then he said the other aspect of dukkha that we should be mindful of is being engaged in false dharmas, false teachings, false beliefs, whatever you might want to call them. And those three suttas, you could say, are significant because they get to the root of the problem, dukkha occurring. How does it occur? It occurs from sensual indulgence or craving after sensual indulgence, according to the Buddha. And according to the Buddha, living a fabricated life, basically. The dependent origination says, from ignorance as a requisite condition comes fabrications. And the things that human beings fabricate the most are what they don't understand about who they are in relation to the world. So we create these grand cosmic systems that have no basis at all in experiential reality. And because we think of them and enough people agree that this sounds reasonable, okay, that's what's going on. And none of it has anything to do with an ordinary human life. The Buddha, you remember the story in the Adittapariyasana Sutta, the sutta about the Buddha's search for his own understanding and how he came across all these speculative and suppositional religions and spiritual systems. He says, no, that's not it. None of these things teach me who I am in relation to the world. They don't bring me understanding of the nature of suffering and my own contributions to suffering. So he rejected them out of hand. They simply didn't lead to the goal. It's not that they're bad or evil or anything like that. They're just the best word to apply to anything that's fabricated is it's just irrelevant. Let it go. Okay. So in this sutta, Ananda is questioning Sariputta. Sariputta very quickly, when he came to the Buddha, which was early in the Buddha's dispensation, He awakened, and he became, within 2 weeks of encountering the Buddha and his Dhamma, he became a representative and a teacher of the Buddhist Dhamma, him and Moggallana. Ananda would too, a little bit later. So Ananda is asking the things that the Buddha warned about back then and still today are speculative realms of spiritual existence. In other words, these were part of the spiritual and religious lexicon flowing out of the Vedas and the Upanishads, the precursor to modern Hinduism. So these were just common beliefs. And Ananda is questioning Sariputta about, when do I get to the point in my jhana practice, in my concentration practice, where these things that he himself had incorporated, Ananda, as part of his own internal reality, when will I get to the point where I'm no longer sensitive, is a word that's used in the sutta. Sensitive meaning a type of mindfulness, but in this application, it's really a distracted type of mindlessness that Ananda is describing when he's caught up or clinging to these thoughts of non-physical realms. And Sariputta's simple and direct answer is almost astonishing. So let me get to it. Hold on, folks. I'm really building this up. This better be a good one, huh? On one occasion, Venerable Ananda visited Venerable Sariputta. They exchanged courteous greetings, and Ananda took a seat next to his friend. Ananda asked the question, "Dear friend, could one develop concentration to the point that they would not be sensitive?" In this case, Ananda is really saying not be distracted by using that word. That's the inference. And not be sensitive to the perception of the earth or the elements of the earth. Meaning, again, distracted, clinging to the elements of the earth. Could one develop concentration to the point that they would not be sensitive to the infinitude of space or the infinitude of consciousness? Those are all the things that spiritual / religious teachings during the Buddhist time and today teach as a goal of the Dhamma. In other words, if you've been just cursory exposed to modern Buddhism, you heard terms of emptiness and nothingness and Buddha nature and Buddhahood. All of those are things that the Buddha never taught because they're speculative and they're fabricated. They have nothing to do with what it means to be a human being right here and right now. So being sensitive to or being drawn to even considering these different dimensions is itself a distraction. And it's even worse than a distraction when we adopt these beliefs as something that is a part of me, part of my belief system. It might be that no matter what happens in my life, I've done a few certain things and I've appeased the right gods and said the right chants, that when I die, I know that I'm going into this really magical, mystical realm where I'm going to be taken care of. Maybe, but you've just lost your whole life in that thinking, haven't you? Because now this moment is no longer meaningful. It's, in fact, when that type of thinking, and it's hard to notice it because you're in it, but that type of thinking insists that I discard what's occurring right now. Always. Even if I happen to be dealing with a situation where I might seem to be in my body, I'm not, because my belief system has me doing this so I can get there. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So even a mundane activity such as changing my tire, I'm not even present for that because my underlying thinking, my underlying focus of this self, this Anatta, is not fixing this tire. This tire is just a means to getting to my reward. And again, I've even missed the meaningfulness of being present for changing a tire. So all those folks that talk about when you're mindful, you should be mindful of what you're doing, be mindful of washing dishes, be mindful when you're changing a tire, be mindful when you're speaking with someone. If they're not incorporating the Eightfold Path, they're teaching something that human beings aren't capable of doing, most of us, because we're not in our body. We're distracted away from it. And many of us will adapt practices and rituals that reaffirm the fabricated view. Why? Because it's what I believe in. It's what I want to maintain. It's not hard to understand why we do this and why we continue to do it. What is harder for me to understand, though, is why we're not all motivated by the way Siddhartha was. In other words, Siddhartha had something within him that led him towards understanding stress and suffering, understanding the world he was living in, rather than find a way to escape it or appease it. That's two different things, isn't it? Because one, if you're always seeking to escape something, you've literally made a prison for yourself, haven't you? no matter how much literal freedom, if it's your mind that's constricted. The Buddha would often talk about himself prior to his awakening as having this constricted mind. The mind becomes our own prison, doesn't it? We might not necessarily be in a physical place that's holding us, but we're holding ourselves. Another word for that is mindlessness, because of what we're holding in mind. Let me continue.
Yeah, I often see him as somebody who was just not satisfied with the answers that he was getting, or the answers that he was coming up with.
Yep.
His mind was just so sharp that he would blow holes in his own theories and other people's theories.
Wow, yes. Siddhartha Gautama, before his awakening, had an intuitive understanding of what it wasn't. Much like most of us. You've heard me tell my story about messing around with, I shouldn't use that word, studying and practicing different Buddhist traditions, and always finding them often nonsensical, and the described culmination of whatever that was unattainable. Yet I did it because I accepted what people were putting in me, that the reason why I can't awaken right now is because there's something wrong with me, or I'm not appeasing enough gods or doing the right rituals. What was wrong with me is I simply lacked understanding of Four Noble Truths that any human being can develop. Good point. Thank you. Okay, let me continue. Ananda continues. Could one develop concentration to the point that they would not be sensitive to nothingness, or of neither perception or non-perception, and other things taught during the Buddha's time and today? Could one develop concentration to the point that they would not be sensitive to or distracted by this world or the next world? What an important line. Because Ananda knows that in his background was buying into this, that there's some value in manipulating my experience in this world, but more importantly, manipulating my experience in the next world. It's just a distraction, isn't it? Would this one still be sensitive to what is occurring? So this is Ananda's the dilemma that he's coming up against. And so obviously Ananda is rather well advanced in his Dhamma practice, but he's not quite sure how this ever deepening concentration is going to be able to incorporate that awakened mind. And will it still be at that point clinging to these old fabricated views? That's what he's asking Sariputta. Sariputta says, yes, dear friend Ananda, even with great concentration, this one could be sensitive to what is occurring, meaning simply they have united their mind and their body. Ananda says, please explain how one could develop concentration so that they would not be sensitive to earth or to this world and the next world or all those other things that he talked about, and still be sensitive to what is occurring. In other words, how could I develop concentration to the point where I'm not mindfully aware of these other things, which sounds like could be a complete annihilation of the way that I'm thinking, of true mindlessness. And since Ananda hasn't developed that point yet of being well concentrated enough to know the other side of that, he hasn't had that direct experience. He's questioning Sariputta on that single point. And we've all talked about that. And I'm talking about even as individuals. I don't remember every single conversation, but that question about what happens to me and where am I going when I develop this Dhamma and let go of all wrong views. That's basically what Ananda is asking, that same question. What will be my experience of self once I let go of all views of self? It seems like quite a paradox, doesn't it? But the truth of the matter is that we can't become who we truly are until we let go of all the views of what we aren't, even though we believe it. Sariputta says, let me explain. On one occasion, I was here in Savatthi at the Blind Man's Grove. I developed concentration, or jhana, to the point that I was neither sensitive to the earth or to this world or the next world, meaning he was no longer sensitive to or distracted by any fabricated views, this world and the next, yet I continued to be sensitive to what is occurring. He let go of all the views that were distracting himself out of his mind and body in this present moment, and was now able to be simply sensitive to what is occurring. So again, I'd like you to think about that for a minute. The value in simply being present with your life as your life occurs. It's worth everything, isn't it? because it's the only way to live a life. We could have 80 years of a physical existence, but if we're not in our bodies as our life unfolds, there's no life there, is it? That's how the Buddha described a mind rooted in ignorance, as like death. And he described an awakened human being as achieving the deathless state. The Buddha's not describing someone who is now going to live forever, ever. It means they've eliminated or let go of all views rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. I continue to be sensitive to what is occurring. Ananda says, please tell me, dear friend Sariputta, what were you sensitive of at that time? Ananda, his response is Sariputta saying, I am sensitive to and well concentrated on the Dhamma. Ananda, I was sensitive to the cessation of becoming further ignorant of Four Noble Truths. We've all talked about in here, and excuse me, Karen, maybe not you, but you will soon, probably by next week, talked about recognizing when we're caught up in eye-making or caught up in a fabrication, and literally stopping that in our own minds and our own thoughts, coming back to the sensation of breathing and letting that fabrication go. Somebody, was it you, Helen, that described that last week? Maybe Bonnie. Just of recognizing being caught up in a fabrication and simply letting it go and coming back to the breath. I thought you told them somebody else. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
But we all have. We've all talked about that. Oh, that's right. It was. She was sitting right there. That's why. But we've all had that experience of recognizing a fabrication, not feeding it, and coming back to the breath. Correct? That's what the Buddha's talking. That's what Sariputta's talking about. I was sensitive to the cessation of becoming further ignorant of Four Noble Truths. That's what he means. I'm sensitive. I'm mindful of it. I've integrated the Eightfold Path so that now I can see a fabrication coming at me and simply not buy into it. I'm sensitive to it. I'm mindful of it. Sariputta continues, I was sensitive to the unbinding from views ignorant of Four Noble Truths. You remember when the Buddha described his awakening in the Nagara Sutta? He said, I know it, meaning I'm sensitive to the fact that I've let go of all these wrong views. And we are all experiencing that too, I would bet. Is that true? You've noticed a diminishing of fabricated views arising and causing distress in your lives? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Through your own efforts, you've done something that people spend years in therapy and thousands of dollars on drugs and alcohol and sex and shopping. That doesn't last, does it? But this simple and direct teaching allows us to reclaim our minds and keep them there. Remarkable. Who said that? I want to hear it. It's got to be a good, if it's coming from you. No?
No.
Okay. Sariputta continues, I was sensitive to the arising and the passing away of all phenomena. Again, that's just a description of being mindfully present in your body. Things arise and pass away. Just as a wood fire's flames arise and pass away, I was sensitive of the unbinding from all wrong views. That's the end of that short sutta. Sensitive to the unbinding, meaning mindful. He had the direct experiential experience of letting go of all wrong views. Remember the sutta just a couple weeks ago of ending fabrications one after another? That was Sariputta too. The Buddha using Sariputta as an example of how fabrications arose and one after another. He recognized them, didn't mess with them, didn't analyze them, didn't take them to somebody else to talk about or distract. He simply recognized them one after another and came back to the sensation of breathing. Phenomena arising, passing away. Fabrications arising and passing away. Mind united in its body. What a wonderful sutta. Thank you all for listening. Let's start with Kevin. How are you, Kevin?
I'm well. How about you, John?
I'm good. I had something I wanted to ask. Oh, before we could, you were the last one here. Were there still? Where'd you park? Could you park in the lot? Okay, but there's still parking?
There's parking on the grass.
Okay, just want to know. Thank you. What do you think of tonight's sutta?
I think it's nice and timely. It fits into the structure of what we've been doing very well, because it just further illustrates that this is to be done, now and here with the Eightfold Path as our guide, and kind of points back to that practice. That's all happening.
Great. Thank you. Is Maura still here?
She is.
Where are you?
I'm back here resting.
Okay. I just wanted, you didn't hear about Bodhi yet?
She got in there 15 minutes ago.
Oh, well, bring him back here so I can see him. I want to see him. I want to show him. I want to show off my dog. He'll be extremely cute because he just got a grooming and he's very happy. Hello, Helen.
Hello, John. It was nice to have you joining us for dinner and Laura tonight.
It's a great pleasure.
All are welcome. We go to Casino del Sol and have dinner before we come in. So anyone is welcome to join us.
It's great food too.
Yeah.
Fun pace too.
It's funny, something that I hadn't thought of for a long time. I used to go to this family's house when the kids were coming home from high school. I'd be there until the parents got home. Not quite babysitting because they were all high school kids. But I remember one time they were talking about a family gathering and how their aunt was always asking, when they're all together, what's next? What are we doing next? And they developed this expression called otni, on to the next event. And when you think about it, that's, when you're not in your present mind, and your mind isn't in your body, and you're not in the present moment, you're in otni.
Yeah,
you're on to the next event. And so
Always.
much of, of life gets that way. And at dinner we were talking about, wouldn't it be great if you could teleport yourself? You could get Russ here at a moment's notice in California. But then we were like, but no, because then everybody would want you everywhere at the same time. And there'd be more things faster here. I got to be in two places at once. We're like, no, no teleporting. So, it's just, those were the things I was thinking about.
Thank you. Lorna, how are you tonight?
Thank you. In the sutta, we're asked to look at our fabrications. A lot of my fabrications, I've noticed, are things that have just happened. I don't leave them. I don't leave them alone. I rethink it, and I should have said this, or I should have done that. And often, I'm thinking about something that's just happened, but thinking it was different. Wishing it was different.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how lifelike, even though I know it's a fabrication, it didn't happen quite that way. But it seems and feels very lifelike. And that's just the time to do what we do, is it's a fabrication. Come back to your breath and come back to the moment. And you just have to put the time in and be thoughtful and put the work in. It's ongoing all the time now.
Oh yeah, because life is.
I often, I'm not very good at just, when I leave a situation, I don't really leave it. Mentally, I think about it again, and I'm reliving it again. And I know I do that out of habit or whatever it's not.
You're sensitive to it, like Sariputta was saying. Yeah.
It's sensitive is a good description. Right? And so that's a lot of my homework that goes on in my head. Thank you.
Thank you. You're describing just that, recognizing it. Appreciate it. Let me go online first. If there's another Karen online. Karen, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. So nice for you to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Did tonight's sutta do anything for you?
Yeah, well, it seemed pretty clear, which was good news.
Yeah.
So, so I'm hopeful about that. Yeah, no, I think I'll just continue to listen. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Karen. Karen's like all of us in the beginning, are struggling with the obscure verbiage. But hello, Jane. How are you?
I'm calm. How are you, John?
I'm good. I just realized I don't have to holler though. You can hear me without that, huh?
Yes.
I'm glad you joined us.
Thank you for the teaching.
You're welcome. I'll see you soon. Oh, I'll see you at the dinner, huh?
You will.
Yeah, Mary too. That's great. Thank you. Karen, how was your first real class with us?
Oh, very peaceful.
Good.
I guess when I was here with my church on Sunday, I was trying to understand. I didn't ask when you had asked if anyone had questions because I figured it would unfold, and it has. That I was wondering how the meditating then ties into when you're not meditating. And then as I've been cracking through your book the past couple days now, and I've been meditating. I've been seeing my mindfulness when I'm not meditating. Really, I'm really conscious of the majority of my thoughts.
So just a little bit of meditation.
Yes, it's wild. Especially, I tend to. I'll blame my parents, right? We could blame our parents for everything. I have a bit of judgmentalness in me, and try to, think deeply about somebody and why they're, do what they do. And, and as that came up today and yesterday, I catch myself and just and put it away like I did with the meditation. So it really feels like doing the same thing when you're not meditating. Yeah. So I it answered itself.
Yeah. But you bring up, thank you so much. You bring up it's such an important point. It's just that we talked about it a lot. It's just recognizing that it's working for you. That's something that the Buddha said continually. Notice what's working and notice what's not. Just as important. Both aspects of that. And practice this. He said over and over, just do this, and you'll achieve this so-called awakened state, which to me means a fully mature human being. And it's just that. So how was your 20 minutes of meditation here with the group? Was that?
It's, I guess, the first half of it started off as it had past a bunch of times where yeah, my mind would go away, and then I remind myself to breathe. Yep. And then maybe halfway through, I started deeper focusing on the breath, and I was able to stay longer with the breath. Yeah. So that made me happy.
Yeah, good for you. Thank you, Karen. And just to know, you heard me say it Sunday too. The Buddha taught something called an eightfold path, and right meditation, jhana meditation, is simply one factor of it, but it supports the entire eightfold path. In other words, as your concentration increases, you're able to hold in mind, be mindful of the other 7 factors at ever increasing levels. And at some point, you'll be saying things like you've heard here, that something occurs, I'm able to apply the Dhamma to it. And that's having integrated the eightfold path, when you can do that, and not having something occur and you stick your mind into some speculative realm, and which means you've just lost your mind again as a response to that. Thank you. Ram, good to see you.
Good to see you. It was great being here on Sunday with the whole group. Yeah. And I was impressed watching you speak about something as tricky as the Dhamma to people that had no experience about it, and it just kind of flowed right out of you, and it made fine sense, one sentence after the other. I was impressed how that came across. It was fun watching that.
Thank you. I was impressed too, but really what I'm impressed by is the topic of Sunday's meeting with the Unitarian Universalist Church was transformation. And I was thinking about this, the transformation in me from the Buddha's Dhamma. And the only thing that I can take credit for is the same thing you should all take credit for, is doing it. You know, I put my time in on my cushion. I put my time in studying it and seeing how it works and making mistakes and, you know, anguishing over it at times. But, you know, I didn't create this thing, and it's a good thing I didn't have to. You know, some incredible human being. The more I read the suttas, Lorna's starting to feel this way a little bit, I think. Siddhartha Gautama is becoming more like a brother than anything else, because I know him so well now. I know what he's teaching. And you're all gaining that familiarity with a human being that lived 2,600 years ago, because his teachings are so intimate, aren't they? And for ourselves, individually intimate.
And he speaks to the most intimate part of the human mind, which just hasn't changed.
Yeah, and he does it in such a gentle, non-confrontational way, with the exception that we have to confront our wrong views. But you know, I'm glad to do that. Thank you, Ron. Kate, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to be here. I don't have anything to add tonight.
I'm glad you're here. Tim, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Yeah, the sutta was right in line with the other suttas that we've had on Saturday and last Tuesday. It's a good time for it. And I got out of it the dependent origination just kind of came right at you. You know, if you go quickly, right through it, right through that conversation to that point where, you know, Ananda got to that point in dependent origination of the I making, you know, the speculation. And, you know, for a sutta to do that on dependent origination is quite stunning for me.
You know what's stunning to me, Tim, is that you made the connection. Yeah, I mean, really, because you in a really short time, you've seen, or you see, that everything the Buddha taught is rooted in dependent origination. So it's good for you. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you didn't come out. That's fine.
You know, that really is remarkable, because that's, I mean, I had world-renowned modern Buddhist teachers that had no understanding at all of dependent origination, nothing. Or even worse, they presented it in such a way that had nothing to do with it. So that you really see it clearly. And that is a key. Understanding dependent origination and what Four Noble Truths really mean is the key to the Dhamma, because that's the context for everything. Thank you. Mary, good to see you tonight.
Good to be here. Good to be here with everyone. I'll take noble sound.
Glad you're here. Hello, David.
In reading this, since it's so short, I got to read more about Sariputta and his boyhood friend going down the road and eventually meeting up with Asaji.
Yeah.
And in 2 lines, that speck of dirt was gone.
Yeah.
And they understood that the Buddha had the true teaching that they wanted to follow.
Yeah.
So, again, to Tim's point, Four Noble Truths, dependent origination. And, you know, that's all it is. It's understanding suffering and the cessation. So,
Thank you. And that reference David made to a little speck of dust in their eyes, that line comes from originally after the Buddha awakened and understood now what he understood, that it is ignorance of the way things are, ignorance of Four Noble Truths that leads to all manner of human suffering. So for 2 more weeks, he sat in and out of meditation, trying to get some understanding of, is it possible to teach? Knowing what he knows about the nature of ignorance and that a mind rooted in ignorance will create very powerful and subtle strategies to ignore its own ignorance. How am I, meaning the Buddha, how am I going to teach this? How can I pierce that veil of ignorance that I know is common to every single human being? Because that's the essence of the Dhamma. So the reason why I keep coming back to that, and it was so great that Tim mentioned it, that's the essential part that the Buddha had to reconcile in his own mind. Is there a way to teach ignorance that's going to be useful? In fact, even in some of the translations, he basically said, I have to find a way to teach this, or I'm just going to be wasting my time, and I won't do that. So the Buddha didn't awaken, and immediately start evangelizing. He seriously considered, was it even possible to teach this? And in that extended contemplation, he realized, yes, it's an eightfold path that I can present that will pierce the veil of ignorance. And so the only path that he ever taught was the eightfold path for that specific reason. And in the line, he said, I'm going to get up off my bed of leaves from under this Bodhi tree, because even if there's only a few folks with just a speck of dust in their eyes, meaning they're just now ready to awaken, they just need a little bit of push. Even if there's just a few folks like that in the world, I'm going to start teaching this. Karen, it's so nice that you joined us tonight.
I'm staying. I just need to get some water.
Do we have any, are there any cups around somewhere? Anybody know? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Julia, good to see you tonight.
Good to see you, John. Good to see you, Mike. When you asked the question if we apply the Dhamma, you know, if we feel like we apply the Dhamma, I do feel like I apply it more often now.
Yeah.
I actually, a lot of times when I have some kind of conflict or, you know, doesn't even have to be like necessarily conflict, but something approaching me or whatever, I see myself taking more of a pause and then a breath and then responding, you know, and I kind of find like that does work.
Yeah,
you know, so that I respond in correct, you know, with right, you know, right words, right thinking, right.
Yeah.
So I feel like it is working, you know.
Yeah, it is. That's outstanding. Maura, are you going?
Not yet.
Okay, we're just about done. So if you leave before we get done, would you just stop back and I'll be ready to go?
Yeah.
Or hang out? And...
I'm just helping Karen with the shit.
Good. Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Julia. Michael.
Hi, John. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I want to get out of this, and it seems like it's a reoccurring theme since Julie and I have been here. It's that this Dhamma takes place moment by moment.
Yeah.
Every moment. Being present moment by moment. Okay? Keeps our minds from going into the past, going into the future, and we concentrate right here in the moment.
Yep.
When we're in this moment, concentrating, whatever comes at the point of contact, we have, or we're working on integrating an eightfold path in anything that occurs, moment by moment, because we're living in an ever-changing environment, world.
Yes.
And we're able to face the world with right perspective because of the integrated eightfold path of what we're trying to integrate. We're trying to make it our own. Make it help me out here. We're trying to, again, integrate it or make it to be almost an intuitive response to everything that occurs.
Yeah. You just described mindfulness as the Buddha teaches it, seeing things from the perspective of the Eightfold Path. So thank you. Bonnie, how are you? Good to see you.
Thanks. Good to be here. I will take note of silence.
I'm glad you're here.
Tonight's
Hello, Liz.
John, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
You know, it always seems to come, everything kind of folds back into itself. I say this all the time, but, and sometimes in a different way, but it all, I just really like that about the Dhamma.
Yeah.
Just everything touches on everything else.
Yeah.
It's like some kind of a complex puzzle where, all sides are touching.
Yeah. That's, yeah, because it's just like that. Thank you. Russ, good to see you tonight. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
I think I just appreciated the straightforwardness of it, and maybe because it was short. I didn't have to think about a whole lot more than just what it was saying, which was really clear, and I appreciate that.
Is that a comment on those 3-hour-long suttas? Sometimes it's just long. Thank you, Russ. How are you, Frank? Good to see you.
Good to be here. Good to see everybody. See the class is growing. How do you advertise the Sunday thing? Is that on your webpage?
That's just for very special people. I'm sorry.
I got you.
Everybody's always. It's just something that came up a couple of weeks ago. A member comes here to Mary Beth. I don't know if you remember her. She's a member of the
Saturday class.
Yeah, and Tuesday sometimes. She's a member up there too, and she just a few years ago, 3 years ago, want to remind me, I thought it was 6. We did a talk to just the kids from there, and this past Sunday was a more family oriented. It was a really wonderful group, and we had a great time. If you want to, next time it comes up, I'll let you know. And we're going to start doing more those type of events and community outreach. And,
well, I just can't make Saturdays, so Sunday that would have been cool.
Oh, okay, all right.
But getting to the sutta, I mean, any day. I mean, it's a great day to listen to any suttas. And I have a mind that's like always looking for the simplicity in them.
Yeah, you do.
And, I didn't read it on the way up. Eric read it to me. And I was getting confused in the beginning when he was talking about the not sensitive to the world. And all I could relate that to in my mind at the time was, because I didn't have much time to contemplate what he was talking about, was like the entanglements that we have in the world and how it could cause suffering. At least in me, it causes entanglements. They cause suffering, and the refuge that I feel from seclusion, and the joy that's born from just that first part of the jhana of directed thought, and then as you settle into your meditation, and that's kind of what I got out of the bottom part of when he was saying how he can remain sensitive to. I'm trying to find it now. Being sensitive to the cessation of becoming. I find that in my meditation when I'm entangled in the world and I just need a break.
Yeah.
And I go through that first level of jhana, and then it leads into that second level, and I can see dependent origination and how that fabricated mind was born from ignorance and so on and so forth, and that chain falls apart, and I feel the cessation, and I feel completely sensitive to the world again. I don't know. That's kind of what it felt like when he was reading it to me.
Wow. What a Dhamma teaching. Thank you. It was really wonderful. Thank you, Frank.
Eric, you need to me.
Yeah, maybe we'll have Eric read these suttas from now on. How are you, my friend?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
I don't think I have anything to add, other than it was just, to me, it was like clear and straightforward. And just like as long as I keep my head like on the path, it's like it just makes sense.
Yeah, that's all we have to do. That's the extent of right effort is just to keep doing it. But your practice is going well. All right, why don't you just sit? We're going to do metta right now, and we'll be done. So, why don't you sit with us, Karen? You can come and sit back down if you want, or you don't have to, but you can. Whatever you want to do, Maura.
I'll go get him and bring him.
Okay.
He wants to stay home.
Okay.
I've been trying so hard not to use antibiotics, but.
No. Sometimes I've been on them for 3 weeks now. You got to do it when you got to do it. But yeah, they're unpleasant, aren't they? All right. Well, we have I don't need to tell the whole story, but we have a sangha holiday dinner that is December 12th of this year, a Thursday night at 7 o'clock at Bamboo House. Everyone's invited, including you. So, and family and friends too. So feel free to bring anybody you'd like. Yeah. And Frank and Eric are too. Can you come up on Thursday night?
We could, but that time, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, right. The holiday season. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, all right. December 12th, 7 o'clock at Bamboo House. Please be there if you can. We'll finish with metta as we always do. The Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. So again, just take a moment to become mindful of your inhalation and your exhalation. Bring your mind back into your body. And the Buddha's words. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace.
That's a great verse on the very end.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, the whole thing
By
is
not
beautiful.
holding to fixed views.
Yeah.
The pure-hearted one.
It's a Dhamma teaching. Take care, Jane. Take care, Karen.
Take care, John.
That part of